Generally, we work two main ways, as you mentioned, what we call project rate or long-term or full-time. And so project rate is what people in this industry are mostly used to. Like, hey, you can go outsource drawings. And it's similar to a lot of other things where, hey, here's the scope I need. Give me a price and a schedule. And so that is our most common way we start with clients is they're say, hey, we don't know if this is going to work, but we have a project that we're willing to try you guys out on. We have time. And so that's usually how we start is we will actually take and give them a free quote, free estimate. And we will, just like they estimate, we will estimate scope items, but we do it by asking questions. One, how do you guys do your shop drawings? What software do you use? How do you organize your drawings? Meaning, are you going to organize scope by rooms, or do you like to put like items together? Because different manufacturers organize their drawings differently, but that informs how we're going to price the job and how we're going to do the work for you. But once we engage that way, we have clients that'll just stay that way. We're there as their overflow capacity. And generally, we will aim to keep our same internal people always with that client. So there's consistency. We document internally and kind of create drafting standards for that client. Most companies don't have documented standards. And that's what I've done at every company as an engineering manager is actually documented. Here's our drafting standard. Here's the block we use for labels. Here's how we lay things out on a page. Like, a lot of experienced engineers were like, I don't need you to tell me how to do that. But for us to be consistent, it matters. And so we will document that internally and kind of create a client profile of that customer so that no matter if it's a month or 6 months in between the last job and this one, we have that as a reference to say, this is how this client operates and what they expect. So that's generally how we'll start with clients. And then what happens is a lot of times it'll work great and they'll say, hey, we actually have a lot of work, or we consistently this is a bottleneck for us. So the first way we try to augment is, as I mentioned before, there's a difference between drafting and engineering, but a lot of times the people who do those tasks are the same people in a small company. And so their bottleneck comes that they're trying to keep the shop busy, which requires engineering, but they're also trying to keep the client happy, which means producing shop drawings. And so if an engineer is working on submittals, they're not feeding the shop. And so that becomes the first struggle a shop is trying to figure out. It's like if you have an assembly line and you're constantly pulling your saw operator to do another task, every time he stops, you're clogging up that assembly line. And so what we say is, hey, let your internal people just do engineering and let us do all your submittals to get through this bottleneck period. And so we don't have to know everything about getting exact. You have a layer, a filter internally that even if what we submit, something maybe isn't exactly, you have time and schedule, and you have that internal person with more institutional knowledge in your organization that can filter what we've done. Also provide us feedback. So say we draw a job 2 months later, they're engineering it and they say, hey, actually, we would have rather you use this detail. Great. Give us that feedback. We'll document it. We'll use that for the next time. And so a lot of times then what happens is we'll graduate to our full-time engagement where they'll say, hey, we want to keep this going and we just need constant capacity. Can you give us 1 or 2 drafters? And they pay a fixed rate per month to just have those people stay full-time available for them. So what that does is, again, it's a controlled cost with low commitment. You're not hiring an employee that you have, all of the overhead and burden costs related to that. But 2, you have them dedicated, meaning like I don't have to, a lot of times when you're dealing with an outsourced partner on anything, you're having to plan very far in ahead. Okay, I know that I'm going to have to get this project to them. I'm going to have to plan time to get it back from them, put it through our internal systems, whatever that is. Having a dedicated resource, now you're able to say, okay, I know what I'm going to have you do tomorrow, but I don't know the next day, but I can determine that between now and then, and I can change what they're working on as needed, just like an internal resource. And that gives them the flexibility to know, okay, I can go sell this job knowing what capacity I have available, as opposed to trying to sell it on a gamble and then find out if I can go get capacity.
Love it. Another quick question specific to, I'm thinking of people, but if I'm using the words right, shop drawings that you're going to send back to the client, and then submittals,
Mm-hmm.
and then the actual engineered drawings that you're going to build.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do them on the same software? Because I know some people do not.
Some people do not. So a lot of people might use Cabinet Vision for their engineering, and they might do their shop drawings in AutoCAD. That is one of our biggest things. So we mostly work with microvome clients, and microvome overlays in AutoCAD. And so part of our value add is that if you use microvome, we're going to draft in microvome in your library so that what we're providing for you isn't just submittal drawings. It is going to be your fabrication drawings as well, and your engineering drawings. And so a lot of times, we encounter a client, we start working with them, and they're at that stage of like, hey, we do submittal drawings over here in this software and then engineering over here. And our goal is to help, align those things and either get them to where they're both the same, or at least we can make the transition between the two more
Really
seamless.
easy.
Yeah.
So could you describe a day in the life of somebody who's working with one of your folks down there? I mean, are they talking every day? Probably not, but.
Yeah. So that is honestly, one of our goals is to communicate as often as possible and daily with our clients. So if we're actively working on a project, we assign a team lead that is the lead point of contact. They're actually working on your job. They're responsible if we have multiple drafters on that job to scale capacity, that everything goes through that team lead. And so if there's questions, usually it starts with the kickoff. Hey, you awarded us a job, or we're going to start this. We tell you, hey, we can start this date. We will schedule a kickoff meeting with that client. And so usually might be combined with their internal kickoff. A lot of these companies will say, hey, we're awarding this job, we're going to schedule an internal kickoff. And that's where you go over the scope. We discuss schedule, all that type of stuff. But we will have our team lead come prepared. They've already reviewed all the stuff and they have a list of questions. A lot of the stuff is questions like we talked about. So we understand, hey, I see this really custom fixture. Here's how we might detail it, but we need to know from you these things to make sure that we detail it correctly. So we try to come prepared with as many questions as possible. And then daily, if there's updates, we'll submit RFIs to the client in a way that they can ask the client if needed or just respond with answers. We use a software called Bluebeam, so we're constantly feeding drawings for review. And so that if your internal PM or engineering manager who's working with us doesn't get to, the final day before everything's due, and they have 100 pages to review all at once. And so we're trying to daily feed them details, and also so that maybe there's a repeated detail, we want to review the first one and get it right before we copy it a bunch of times. So it is almost daily communication, learning from the client, hey, how can we help you manage us better? And how can we, but also get on a cycle that is, tolerable to be successful in this project, and try to avoid surprises and stuff.